Hello, fifth grade. Today we're going to begin working with division of fractions. Now, I'm going to just throw out this caution right now, is that some of you may already know how to do this using an algorithm, and for some of you this will be new. But you know what? I don't care about the algorithm, and you know that there's always process that we go through, right? That the algorithm is the last thing that we're going to get to. We're not even going to get to it in fifth grade. Okay, that is a sixth grade standard. So I need you to go with me to help you understand what fraction division is all about, but not to memorize some algorithm. Okay, so I know you know how I feel about that kind of thing. So here we go. So you should take notes with me. You should be doing the problems with me. Actually, you need your book. So we're going to do some of the activities in the book together. So if you could open your book to page 356, that is where we're going to start. So we're going to start on page 356, reviewing some vocabulary. Okay, so first of all, the term that I want you to really understand here is inverse operations. Inverse operations, you've heard that before. Inverse operations has to do with those operations that sort of are opposite. They sort of undo each other. Inverse operations. The ones we're talking about right now are multiplication and division. Okay, if you do 2 times 5 is 10, then you know 10 divided by 5 is equal to 2, right? It's sort of backwards and forwards. So if we had a factor of 1/3 and a factor of 6, the product would be 2 because 1/3 of 6 is 2. If that were a division problem, what do we call the product as it moves into the division problem? Well, this would be called the divisor. No, it wouldn't be called the dividend. Dividend, sorry about that. The dividend is the number that was the product. So when I said 2 times 5 is 10, the division problem that was related to that was 10 divided by 5 equals 2. So 10 was the product of the multiplication, but it becomes the dividend of the division problem. Okay, so then if we were to take one of the factors and move it into this spot, that would be the divisor. And the result is the quotient. Okay? So now we want to use the words in the review box at the top of the page in these sentences so that they make sense. Okay? So let's take a look. The first one says, a number that divides the dividend is the, and we just talked about that, divisor. An algebraic or numerical sentence that shows two quantities are equal is called an equation. If there's no equal sign, we call it an expression, but an equal sign makes it an equation. All right, so a number that names a part of a whole or a part of a group is called a fraction. The blank is the number that is to be divided in a division problem. That would be called the dividend, the one I just had trouble with. And then finally, the blank is the number, not including the remainder, that results from dividing. That would be the quotient. Okay, so as we go forward, these are words that you should be using when you're talking about what it is we're working on. So now if you could flip the next page, 357, we're going to use a number line to help us understand this problem. So it says that Mia walks a 2-mile fitness trail. She stops to exercise every 1/5 of a mile. How many times does she stop? So on the number line, we see that we have intervals here that are numbered with 0, 1, and 2. But in between the 0, 1, and 2, we have some equal parts. So if you look at the number of equal parts, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again. So those equal parts would be fifths. Okay, so now if we wanted to label them, we could 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, and then 1 whole. And after that would be 1 1/5, 1 2/5, 1 3/5, 1 4/5. Sorry, it's hard to write my fat pen. All right, so the question was, how many times does she stop to exercise? So we want to know how many 1/5 there are in 2. So let's count them. Well, every time we jumped on the number line, that was a fifth, right? How many times do we do that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 1/5ths in 2 wholes. So we could say that 2 divided by 1/5 is 10 because 10 times 1/5 is 2. So she stopped to exercise 10 times. So let's look at the next one. Roger has 2 yards of string. He cuts the string into pieces that are 1/3 yard long. How many pieces of string does he have? Well, let's draw this problem over on the side. Here's our piece of string. This is the beginning of it. This is 1 yard in, and this is 2 yards in, okay? And he's going to cut each piece 1/3. So I'm gonna use a different color here to mark the thirds. So we have 3 equal parts within each hole. And so how many 1/3s are there? Well, we could count 1, 2, 3 to make 1, and 1, 2, 3 more to make 2. So there were 6 1/3 size pieces in the 2 holes. That means 6 divided by 1/3 is, or 2 divided by 1/3 is 6, because 6 times 1/3 is 2. So Roger has 6 pieces of string. So you see how we're using inverse operations to help us with division? We're doing the division, but we're checking it with the multiplication to make sure it makes sense. So now I'd like you to flip over to page 359, and we'll do some problems together here. All right, so you can see there are some fraction strips for number 1, and that's just a visual to help you understand the problem. And if you don't need to use it, that's fine, but it's there for you if you do need to use it. All right, the question says 3 divided by 1/3. That means we have 3 whole. Here's 1, 2, 3, right? Those are 3 wholes that are exactly the same. And now we want to know how many 1/3s they are there in those 3 holes. So we could count them and say 1, 2, 3 make 1. 4, 5, 6 make 2, 7, 8, 9 make 3. So there were 9 1/3 pieces. And if you think about it, 9 times 1/3 is 3. So number 2 says the problem here is 3 divided by 1/6. So these are the small pieces on the number line are 6. And if we wanted to kind of do it in a shortcut way, from 0 to 1, how many 6 would that be? Well, there would be 6 of them, right? 6 1/6 make 1 whole. So there'd be another 6 here and another 6 here. So how many 6 is that? Well, it's 18 of them, because 18 1/6 make 3. Number 3 here says 1/4 divided by 2. Now, instead of starting with a whole, we're starting with a part, and we're going to break it into pieces. So if you think about a 1/4, dividing it by 2 is like finding half of it, right? You know that a half of a 1/4 is equal to an 1/8, and that's because 1/8 2 times is 1/4. Now, if you don't see that, you could also think about this as 1/8 times 2 in fraction form, and then you could swap the numerators or the denominators, and then we would have, this would be a 2 and this would be 1. We have 2/8, which is equivalent to 1/4. So you can think of it many different ways. So what I'd like you to do right now is to work on 4 through 8. I want you to pause the video, do the problems, and then come back and check and see if you got them right. So here are the correct answers. How'd you do? All right, well, if you have questions, make sure you ask, okay? Send me an email or call a friend, okay? So your assignment now is to work on the practice page for lesson 8.1. Give it your best shot, and I'll see you later. Bye.